This is mathheals.com. You can go here to get more, find more links to YouTube videos on mathematics if you wish. This is solving polynomial equations by factoring. And I guess I better clear off my tablet. There we go. And this is not to teach you the different factoring techniques. You should know those by now. If not, check out some of those earlier videos. But this is going over something called the zero factor property. Seems like every book has a slightly different name of this. But this says if you got something times something else equal to 0, then you can set each factor equal to 0. So it set p equal to 0, and you set q is equal to 0. and look at how I phrase that. Something times something equal to 0. Because it really is as vague as that. It can be anything. It can be a binomial times a trinomial. It can be a square root times an absolute value. You can have anything, as long as it's a product. Some books call this the zero product principle, product of zero, a whole bunch of different names, so forth. I like this name the best. This is one I used way back when, some 17 years ago. And the name to me told you exactly what to do. Zero factor property. Zero says get 0 on one side, and factor says factor the other side. Let's take a look at some problems. This one we got x squared plus 38x minus 80 equal to 0. First thing we got to do is get 0 on one side. And let me correct my piece of paper here. There we go. Well, we got 0 on one side. And then the second thing is to factor the other side. So I want to factor this. X squared, x, no number in front of the x squared. That's the PSD method. So we're going to take the number at the end, the 80, and ignore signs. So I know it's negative 80, but we'll just look at 80. And we're going to come up with our 3 columns. Our P column, the P for product. We'll write down all products give us 80. 1 times 80, 2 times 40, 4 times 20, 5 times 16, 6 no, 7 no, 8 times 10. In the S column, we add these two numbers together. 1 plus 80 is 81, 2 plus 40 is 42, 4 plus 20 is 24, 5 plus 16 is 21, and 8 plus 10 is 18. In the difference column, we'll subtract the smaller from larger. 80 minus 1 is 79, 40 minus 2 is 38, 20 minus 4 is 16, 16 minus 5 is 11, and 10 minus 8 is 2. The number we're looking for is a number in our middle term, which is 38, which is right here, so we're going to use 2 and 40. So put 2 here, 40 here. Okay. Remember our note on our signs. The larger number in the P column that we're using, our larger number in the P column is always going to be the same sign as the middle term. Middle term is positive, so this is positive. If the number I circled is in the difference column, D for different signs, which means this one's positive, this one has to be negative. If it was in the S column, it'd be same signs, both positive, both negative. Zero factor property says you get 0 on one side, you factor the other side, you're going to set each factor equal to 0. So I'll say x minus 2 equal to 0, and x plus 40 equal to 0. And at this point, you solve these. These are linear equations. So take negative 2 over, gives us a positive 2. Take the 40 over, and it becomes a negative 40. And those are our answers. Let's look at our next one. (45x squared plus 13x minus 2 equal to 0. And we want to solve this. Well, again, the zero factor property says you get 0 on one side. Now we got 0 on one side. And then we factor the other side. X squared, x, no x, and there's a number before x squared. That's a key number. With a key number, we take the number at the beginning times the number at the end, ignoring signs. So we got 45 times 2 gives us 90. And we write down all products give us 90. So I got 1 times 90, 2 times 45, 3 times 30, 4, I don't think so, 5 times 18, 6 times 15, 7, no, 8, no, 9. 9 times 10. We then add these together in our S column. 1 plus 90 is 91. 2 plus 45 is 47. 3 plus 30 is 33. 5 plus 18 is 23. 6 plus 15 is 21. 9 plus 10 is 19. Difference column, we subtract them. Smaller from larger. 90 minus 1 is 89. 45 minus 2 is 43. 30 minus 3 is 27. 18 minus 5 is 13. 15 minus 6 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. Sometimes I ask in class, how many of these do you have to get right? And sometimes students say, well, all of them. And I say, no, just the one you're looking for. That's the only one you have to actually add and subtract right. I sometimes add and subtract wrong myself on these. We're looking for 13. Here's the 13, so we're going to use 5 and 18. Now with key number, what we do is we rewrite our middle term using these two numbers. Now our larger number, which we're using, our larger number in a P column is going to be the same size as our middle term. Our larger number is 18. Our middle term is positive. So this will be a plus 18x. Number I circled is over in the difference column. D for different signs. So if the 18 is positive, then the 5 will be negative, because they have to be different signs. Then I'll use factoring by grouping. The first group here, they have a 9 and an x in common, and that gives us 5x plus 2. Second group has nothing in common, but remember with GCF, if your first term is negative, you always want to factor out a negative. So I'll factor out a negative 1, and that gives us 5x plus 2. Our goal is to get this parentheses the same as that, which it is. So I'll factor out a 5x plus 2, and that leaves us 9x minus 1. Zero factor property. We get 0 on one side, we factor the other side, we set each factor equal to 0. So I'll set 5x plus 2 equal to 0, and 9x minus 1 equal to 0. And then we want to solve these. Take the 2 over to the right side, becomes a negative 2. Take anything across or equals, sign changes. Divide both sides by 5. And those 5's cancel. And we got x is equal to negative 2/5. Now in this one, take the negative 1 over, it becomes a positive 1. Divide both sides by 9. And we get x is equal to 1/9. And those are our two answers. Let's look at this one. We got 5x squared equal to 7x. Well, remember the name of our method here, zero factor property. Well, that says you want to get 0 on one side. We don't have 0 on one side, so we need to get it there. Now, the x to the largest power, we want to be positive. So in determining which side to move it to, I'm going to take 7x over to the left side. So we got 5x squared minus 7x equal to 0. Again, when you take anything across or equals, your sign changes. Now this particular method here is GCF. They both have an x in common, so I'll factor that out. And that gives us 5x minus 7. Zero factor property says you get 0 on one side and you factor the other side, you set each factor equal to 0. So I'm going to set x equal to 0, and I'll set 5x minus 7 equal to 0. Now this one's already solved for x, so we're fine there. This one will take negative 7 to the right side, becomes a positive 7. Divide both sides by 5. Those x's cancel. And we get x is equal to 7/5. And those are our two answers. And do I have room for another one there? I don't know if I got room there or not. Let me start a new page. Maybe. There it goes. So number 4. We have x plus 10 times x minus 5 equals negative 14. And we're wanting to solve these again. Well, zero factor property. It says you have to have 0 on one side. This looks like it's already factored and ready to set each one of these equal to 0, but it doesn't work because we don't have 0 on one side. So what we actually have to do is we have to get rid of the parentheses, take negative 14 over the left side, then refactor it. So let's do that. Well, up here, x times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. 10 times x is 10x. And 10 times negative 5 gives us negative 50. Well, combine together like terms at any step. Negative 5x plus 10x gives you 5x minus 50. And I'll bring the negative 14 over the left side and it becomes a positive 14. You bring anything across your equals, your sign changes. Combine together numbers at any step. Negative 50 plus 14 gives us negative 36. So we got 0 on one side. Now this other side over here, we have x squared, x, no number in front of the x squared. That's the PSD method. So we'll take the number at the end, the 36, and we'll come up with our 3 columns. P column, we list all products, give us 36. We got 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 6 times 6. In the S column, we add them together. 1 plus 36 is 37, 2 plus 18 is 20, 3 plus 12 is 15, and 4 plus 9 is 13, and 6 plus 6 is 12. Difference column, we subtract them. 36 minus 1 is 35, 18 minus 2 is 16, 12 minus 3 is 9, 9 minus 4 is 5, and 6 minus 6 is 0. Number we're looking for is a number in our middle term, which is 5, which is right here, which means I'm going to use 4 and 9. Now our larger number in our P column, which is the 9, is going to be the same size as the middle term, which is positive. Now the number we circled is in the difference column, D for different signs, so if this one's positive, this one has to be negative. Zero factor property. Get 0 on one side, you factor the other side, you set each factor equal to 0. So I'm going to set x minus 4 equal to 0 and x plus 9 equal to 0. And solve these. Take negative 4 over, it becomes a positive 4. Take the 9 over, and it becomes a negative 9. And those are our 2 answers. Let's take a look at our last problem here. We've got negative 25x plus 75 equals 3x squared minus x to the third. Zero factor property says you need to get 0 on one side. Well, deciding which side to move everything to, I want the x to the largest power to have a positive number in front of it. Well, our largest power of x is x to the third. I want that to be a positive. So I'm going to take these 2 terms here and move them over to the left side. When I take them over, the signs of them change. So the negative x to the third becomes a positive x to the third. The 3x squared becomes a negative 3x squared. And the negative 25x plus 75 remain there. Well, 4 more terms. That's grouping. So group the first 2 terms together, group the last 2 terms together. First 2 terms have an x squared in common, so I factor that out, and that gives me x minus 3. Last 2 terms have a 25 in common, and my first term is negative, so we'll factor out a negative 25. And that gives me x minus 3. Remember, your goal in grouping is to get this parentheses the same as that, which it is, so I'll factor it out. And that leaves us x squared minus 25. Remember, to decide what goes in your second set of parentheses, you can cross these out. And what isn't crossed out goes in your second set of parentheses. Now here we got 2 terms of minusing it. That's dots. Difference 2 squares. And I try to write it as something squared minus something else squared. The x minus 3 just carries down. It doesn't change anymore. You ask yourself what times itself gives you x squared, and that's x. And what times itself gives you 25, and that'd be 5. 5 times 5 is 25. X times x is x squared. Well, difference two squares says you take what's in your first set of parentheses, you add what's in your last, and you take what's in your first and you subtract what's in your last. Now, the zero factor property isn't limited to just two factors. You got 0 on one side and you got the other side factored. Doesn't matter how many there are. You set each one of them equal to 0. So I'm going to set x minus 3 equal to 0, x plus 5 equal to 0, and x minus 5 equal to 0. Now I want to solve each one of these. So I get x is equal to 3, x is equal to negative 5, and x is equal to positive 5. And those are my three answers. And last problem in that lesson. So let me go ahead and stop the recording here.